haircut today. You want a cape? And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Monday, November 28th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by PrizePicks. We got a 10-game NBA slate today. This week is pretty irritating for the NBA. 10 today, 3 tomorrow. I think it's 13 on Wednesday, but it's at least 12. One game on Thursday, and then a nice 11 or 12 gamer again on Friday. So the NBA making a terrible schedule for Tuesdays and Thursdays. But we are here either way, breaking it all down. So be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, congratulations on your early slate.
Thanks. Yeah, it was nice to get a decent win. So I'd had some close calls in NBA recently and kept getting second and third. I'd had close ones in NFL this year too. So yeah, it was nice to actually get a first place. That felt good.
I bet it did. This slate is pretty irritating right now. I think it'll be a lot more fun to talk about when it gets to the deeper dive, because half of this slate played yesterday, and there's a gajillion dudes that you need news on that aren't even on an actual injury report yet because it doesn't exist. So it's one of those days. When we get to the Magic, we're just going to skip it. We're not going to do anything any further. There's a lot of really dumb stuff that we need to talk about, but we are going to talk about it all. I think I'm ready to just dive in. 10 games is a lot, so I'm ready if you are.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Kicking it off right away. First game up, and it's a doozy on both sides, honestly. The Atlanta Hawks are 1-point favorites in Philly, 218 total. For Atlanta, it's kind of easy to talk about. They are on a back-to-back. They are playing 2 in 3 days. However, or 3 in 4 days, rather. Sorry. Well, I guess that's also still true, but
yeah,
a real dumb way to
kind of typically how it works.
Yeah, it's just a real dumb way to say it. We don't know the status yet on Clint Capella, who's been out with a toothache or whatever's going on in his mouth right now. So we got 30 plus minutes out of Onyeka Okongwu for both of those days. I'm projecting Clint Capella in at this point in time because it's a tooth injury, and I just assume that at some point in time he's going to be back. But that is the only real piece of information we need to pay attention to. They did drop Aaron Holiday from the rotation and went to Trent Forrest yesterday. I don't think that that's an actionable item, but for now, this is just sort of Atlanta. We got the John Collins breakout game yesterday, so that finally happened. He looks good again today. What do you like for the Hawks?
Yeah, I think the starters in general just kind of look decent on a slate of this size with what is probably going to end up being plenty of injury news. I don't think that there's necessarily anything that looks like a true priority, but, it goes without saying that Trae Young at 9,900, DeJounte Murray down to 8,900, they're both solid enough options. Young this year, averaging 1.36 DraftKings points per minute, should play 35, 36 minutes. Murray is around He's at 1.16 DraftKings points per minute. He should play 36, 37 minutes. So both of those guys look good, if you can get there. Whoever's starting at center is going to look reasonable. Capella, if he's back, I assume he's just playing his normal 28, 29 minutes. He's about a 1.15 fantasy point per minute guy. If he's not back, then you have a $4,300 Okongwu. Like you said, probably playing north of 30 minutes. He's just shy of a fantasy point per minute guy. So he's still going to project well. And then once again, we saw a bunch of minutes from John Collins yesterday. Had a good game. But to me, the playing time is what's really important is, we're seeing typically his floor playing time games now, barring foul trouble or weird things like that, is 32 minutes. And then at times he's getting 34, 35. Jalen Johnson sort of losing minutes and Collins picking them up. So that stands out. Collins is still sitting at 5,500. I think he's probably the easiest guy to get to here just because he does have the cheapest price tag. Second cheapest to DeAndre Hunter, but cheapest price tag of the main 4 fantasy options. And then also he has MPE. So the way things look right now, I think Collins probably the easiest guy to get to on DraftKings.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think he stands out. I'm really intrigued by the $8,900 price tag on DeJounte Murray. Point guard, shooting guard. He's playing 37 minutes a game, or at least that's how I have him projected. Yeah. I would say that he's probably pretty comparable to Collins for me because he has that MPE and that sub 9K price tag. I see those guys as basically equal. I think Trae is, a half step behind. And then obviously if Okongwu is in, he's the easiest guy to get to for Atlanta.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm with you. It's kind of interesting to me that right now we have Young projected for a little bit more ownership than Murray. Not by a ton, but 10% to 6.5%. Young is the better fantasy producer. At the beginning of the year, we saw them be very, very comparable in terms of fantasy production, and it was really surprising. And as the sample size has gotten bigger, you've seen Young pull away. But getting $1,000 discount for a guy that is still a really good point per minute guy and is going to have his share of games where it's just the DeJounte Murray game, it's kind of interesting to me that he's not getting more ownership at that falling price tag.
I was really surprised to see that difference because I think it's a lot closer than that. I think that $1,000 is really like the big thing. Trey's been a tenth of a fantasy point per minute on FanDuel, at least better than Murray over the last 30 days. But $1,000 gap is $1,000 gap. So that is pretty intriguing to me. No one's getting any ownership here, though, for Atlanta. It's all single digits across the board, including John Collins. I do like the idea of getting to Atlanta a little bit here. I think they're like mildly underrepresented.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot's going to come down to like what else opens up on the slate, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, like this is a very, very rough outlook at the 10 games that are going to be played today, just because of how many back-to-backs there are. It's half the slate. It got really good in the second half of the show, or at least for me, for the process, where we started getting teams that didn't play yesterday. So we had injury reports and you could project rotations. But of these first like 5 or 6 games, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on for Atlanta?
So for hardwood prospecting, not exactly true. He said that Collins only looks good if Capella's out. Collins still isn't playing center minutes. He should be, but he hasn't been. They've been going to Frank Kaminsky as the backup behind Okongwu. So, I mean, if you want to argue that, Capella is a better rebounder and a little bit of that's going to trickle down to Collins if he's out, then sure. But this is more so John Collins taking minutes back from Jalen Johnson than anything. Collins isn't playing more minutes as a result of Capella being out.
No, he's not. He should, or at least, well, yeah. I mean, there's kind of an upper bounds here. I mean, he's playing 34 minutes a game really at this point in time. So I think he should be playing that regardless. I just think he should be playing some of them at center.
Right. Yeah. I think the minutes are fine one way or the other. I don't think we need Frank Kaminsky playing all of the backup center minutes. I have no idea what that accomplishes. No. But just to see how it looks, 381 minutes with Capella on. Actually, let me put Trae Young on too, because I don't want like random backup minutes. But with Clint Capella and Trae Young on the floor this year, Collins has played 348 minutes. He's averaged 0.85 DraftKings points per minute. With Young and Okongwu on, Collins has played 152 minutes. He's averaged 0.89 DraftKings points per minute. So really, Clint Capella shouldn't have anything to do with anything.
And hardwood prospecting did respond with the Collins rebound rate is higher, and like that just makes sense.
Yeah, it's 13.3% with Okongwu and Young on. With Capella and Young, it is 11.2%. So yeah, like 2 points higher. So like it should be like it does look marginally better, but it's not the difference between like he's a good play and he's not a good play. He's fine regardless.
Yeah, we're talking about like a half fantasy point in the grand scheme of things. Then we go to Philly, which this is so stupid. I'm so excited to talk about it, but it's just incompetence at FanDuel today. We have, well, one, they played yesterday, so we don't know the status. It's possible Joel Embiid plays today. I have no idea. PJ Tucker hurt his ankle yesterday, so we don't know his status at all. We still have no Harden, no Maxey. I've assumed that Joel Embiid is still out and Tucker is in, but that's a big time piece for minutes here. Really creates something for probably Daniel House and George Niang. You ready for this? FanDuel has lowered DeAnthony Melton's price to $6,200. They've dropped Tobias Harris back down to $6,800. Shake Milton still hasn't moved at $6,500. For some reason, we only have him projected for 8% ownership. I just like Shake Milton every day, apparently. I don't know what FanDuel's doing dropping Melton and Harris's price tags unless they know that Joel Embiid is coming back, but it's pure insanity on the FanDuel side. On DraftKings, these guys are essentially appropriately priced and still look just as good as they have for the past couple games.
Yeah, pretty crazy to lower the prices there. If you do get Embiid back, then of course the rates come down for Milton, and Harris, and it makes them not look as good. But you still have a $6,500 Shake Milton on DraftKings. I don't know why that price isn't going up more. He's just playing a lot of minutes. So I don't think you can expect him to do what he's done the last couple of slates where he's just, completely breaking slates at 6K or 6,500. I don't think that's what you should expect. I think, him being a 0.9 to 1 fantasy point per minute guy is where you're likely to land, but and more so if Embiid is in, but he's just playing a million minutes. So he still looks a little bit underpriced here. Harris and Melton are a little bit more expensive. I think that they're pretty difficult to get to, I think, if Embiid is in, whereas Milton is still certainly playable. If Embiid is out, Milton looks really, really good, and then Melton and Harris both still look fine.
We got to talk about PJ Tucker here because he played the first half, left. Daniel House started the second half. If PJ Tucker can't go today, let's just assume for right now, I know this is we're starting to really tie in a lot of assumptions, but let's just assume that Joel Embiid is still not back, because if he comes back, Philadelphia just does not look like this today. Let's assume PJ Tucker is out for a second. We're not obviously. We're getting Montrezl Harrell as the starting center. Do you just assume it's Daniel House straight away starting lineup, 28 plus minutes?
That's my expectation, yeah.
Okay. Obviously is a decent enough value play in that regard at 3,300, small forward, power forward. Like he certainly becomes a low dollar priority.
Yeah, like he's somebody that by the time lock rolls around, you might not be as excited about, but if he's starting at 3,300, then he's going to look pretty good. There's not a lot, especially like if Embiid's out, like if Embiid's out and Thibault's out, like you're just kind of starting to run thin there. So I would just expect he's getting enough minutes to look good.
What about George Niang then? 4,500 on DraftKings, 4,100 on FanDuel. Is there something there if we also lose PJ Tucker?
Potentially. Like he played 20 minutes yesterday. Sometimes he's getting up to around 24 in competitive games where he's playing well. I think at the very least, if Tucker is out, it does open the door for him to play more minutes. But at the same time, you saw Korkmaz, get a little bit of extra run yesterday as well. Granted, some of that was garbage time, but I think you kind of get a hot hand situation between those two.
Okay. Because I thought, to me, it's just as likely that George Niang then starts at the 4. Maybe not just as likely since we saw House get there, but like, I wouldn't surprise me to see Niang start over House.
Yeah, I think House is the favorite to start, but it certainly could be Niang.
What do we do with Paul Reed, who played 30 minutes yesterday? Had another big day in terms of stocks, I believe. 4,600 on DK, 5,400 on FanDuel, which is going to be a little bit more of a tough sell. He's either going to play 30 minutes or 20 minutes, apparently.
I think you continue to just treat it like we have been. I think you project around, assuming Harrell's starting, I think you project around 24 minutes there, 20 to 22 to Reed. If Tucker is out, I think maybe you do, or you probably do go 48 minutes to those two. So maybe a 24, something like that. If Tucker is in, I think I typically project like 44 or 45 minutes to him.
Would you be surprised if they played alongside of each other?
Not shocked, but surprised, yeah.
Okay. Anything else for Philly?
No.
Sorry, weird team today.
Allergies are at full.
Are you still just overly emotional after picking up that W? It's been so long.
Yeah, just can't. No, so like I always have allergy issues when I go to my mom's because I'm not used to the dogs anymore, and so I made sure to like take allergy medicine this time the whole time I was there, and like Saturday night, I was like, all right, I feel like I'm at the edge of where like this is about to get bad. And so I was going to come back yesterday, but I ended up not, and definitely should have.
Okay. Minnesota Timberwolves are 1-point favorites in Washington, 222 total. We'll start on the Minnesota side where yesterday they played. We had no Jaden McDaniels, who was out with an illness. We have had no Taurean Prince for the past 2 games. He is just officially out for today. Jordan McLaughlin, also questionable. He has missed the past 3 games. I went with the same rotation from like a in and out perspective that we had yesterday, but clearly McDaniels could play today, and it wouldn't surprise me at all. The key piece that I want to point out is the $6,600 price tag on Rudy Gobert on DraftKings, but that's not where the ownership is. He is getting ownership, but Towns is 15% owned, Russell 16, Jalen Noel is 12. You can obviously always go to someone like Anthony Edwards. We saw Austin Rivers play 29 minutes yesterday, pacing for 32. He's shitty. What do we do with Minnesota against your Wizards?
So assuming that McDaniels is back and Austin Rivers isn't starting, I think that it's kind of just what we've talked about for a while now with Minnesota. The prices are coming down a bit. It makes all of Gobert, Towns, Russell, Edwards look pretty good. Um, they're all pulling some ownership. Russell, Towns, Gobert, all double digits. Edwards, 8%. But I do think Gobert at 6,600, that's a really cheap price tag. Obviously, a good rebounder, averaging around 1.1 DraftKings points per minute. Towns has a massive ceiling. Russell looks good. Why is Jalen Noel getting 12% ownership?
That was one of my questions. I mean, he played 24 minutes yesterday. I guess the assumption is no McDaniels, no Prince, no McLaughlin.
I mean, we have McLaughlin projected in.
No,
We
well,
don't
then
have
it's not
you know,
that.
no, we have McDaniels and McLaughlin in. So in that case, I don't know why Jalen Noel would get ownership, but
He would not get a single share. Well, like not by anybody competent.
yeah. So actually, to be fair, maybe we just have maybe it's just our projections have McDaniels in and our ownership doesn't.
Yeah, which we see from time to time.
Yeah.
I mean, like we know how to talk about Edwards, Towns, Russell, Gobert because the guys that are in or out are irrelevant to those four guys. I'm a little surprised to see the Towns ownership.
They're all going to look good regardless. It's just a matter of if McDaniels is in, then those four are probably all that really looks good. If McDaniels is out, then you're starting to get that $3,100 Jalen Noel that matters. $3,900 Kyle Anderson matters more. Rivers, if he's starting at 3,100 in this, great revenge spot, then that looks decent. But so that McDaniels piece does matter for the bottom end guys on Minnesota.
Yeah. So we got to pay attention to that news as it comes out later, but. Yeah, if I'm going to anybody here, first and foremost, I think Gobert, just because of that $6,600 price tag, is the guy that I'd be most interested in. And then we go to the Wizards, where, I don't know. So we finally got Beal, and we got Monty Morris back. We still haven't had Rui for a couple games. Kuzma didn't play yesterday with lower back pain. I kind of just went full bore, everybody but Rui, at which point, and I never expected to say this out loud, but congratulations on maybe getting a draft pick right. Deni Avdija is the highest owned guy from the Wizards, 19% on DraftKings, 34% on FanDuel. Feels a tad aggressive for Deni, but I think a good value play. Minutes are pretty firm for him now. You are muted.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot of minutes lately. Obviously, the healthier the Wizards get, the riskier those minutes become. But if you get Rui out, if you get anybody out, Avdija is likely to just play more minutes. Only played 27 yesterday, but that game also was just sort of a weird one. He didn't play down the stretch, but it was a blowout until pretty late. So you didn't get the actual normal rotations that you would. I had no idea Devin Dotson was even on the Wizards, but he played 18 minutes in the second half yesterday. Literally no idea. Just looked at it and said, okay, cool.
I didn't know he was on there either. He definitely wasn't a part of my depth chart for the Wizards before that happened.
No, I had absolutely no idea. So like I said, that's just weird rotations yesterday. But if anybody's out, Avdija should get solid minutes. 4,800 is getting relatively expensive for him, but he has been playing well. Porzingis at 8,600 is interesting. He was really disappointing yesterday. But played 36 minutes 2 games ago. Only played 26 yesterday. I typically project him for 30 to 32. He's obviously a high upside guy, but 8,600 is relatively expensive, especially assuming that Beal plays. Outside of that, though, I don't think anything looks really good if we assume that everybody's in.
If Kuzma ends up out, who gets the biggest bump?
It really helps to secure Avdija's minutes, I think. Kispert probably gets the biggest bump in terms of just going from, if everybody's in, Kispert might play 16 minutes, but certainly could play more if guys start being out. I don't necessarily think there's one specific guy. I think it's more so those minutes just kind of get split around.
It's not Will Barton getting to 30 minutes.
I mean, it could be, but
yeah. Who's the better center play today on DraftKings? Kristaps Porzingis or Rudy Gobert?
Gobert.
Okay. Yeah, that's the only reason that I find Porzingis, and I shouldn't compare them 1-to-1 like that, but it's the reason that I'm not as interested in Porzingis, because you just see Rudy Gobert on the opposite side here for $2,000 less. Now, Gobert has not been the same kind of guy this year. He's basically just over a fantasy point per minute. I assume that starts to climb back to his normal rates as we get closer to the end of the season, but hasn't been great yet for Minnesota. But I do like Gobert on the opposite side. Just a weird game for Washington.
Agreed. Also, big takeaway from yesterday. Marvin Bagley is the Pistons' first superstar big man since Andre Drummond.
Please tell me that's not in the chat.
superstar being used extremely loosely in chat today.
Marvin Bagley will never be better than Andre Drummond.
And Andre Drummond will never be a superstar.
No. None of that. All right. 2 games in. Let's talk schedule for the rest of the day. Make sure you guys are hitting that like button. That is what we need. NHL Strategy Show coming up at 2 p.m. We've got the No House Advantage NFL show at 3. The No House Advantage NBA show at 3:30. Adam will be back for the deeper dive at 4:45. NBA Live Before Lock at 6 p.m. and then NFL Live Before Lock at 7:15. So 6 more live shows for you guys today. What more could you possibly want for $0 to you? And then we got to talk about the promo. It's your last chance to get into our Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal. The promo code is THANKS. You will eventually see a QR code on the screen. You can go to stokastic.com/promos as well. $5 for a Stokastic Plus Platinum weekly pass. That covers everything we have. All of our projections, all of our ownership, our boom bust tools for all of the sports that exist, including our lineup generator, which for NBA and NFL, I think you guys will really find to be interesting. Fantasy Cruncher is not included in this deal for a weekly pass, so you do get to give it a little chance on that lineup generator. But $5, it's the best deal that we've ever run. If you want to take advantage of it, you got to do it today. If you don't do it by today, it is over. So come on, guys, do it. All righty. Charlotte Hornets, 11-point underdogs in Boston, 226 total. We'll start on the Hornets side. Boston's going to be a little bit tougher to talk about. No LaMelo Ball. Gordon Hayward is going to be out for a while. Cody Martin is out for a while. No DSJ here either. We've seen Terry Rozier sort of just take over in these situations. Ownership is a little weird here. Jalen McDaniels at 4K is the highest owned guy at 23%. Terry Rozier, Mason Plumlee, and Teo Maledon are all about 14% owned. Not as much going to Oubre and Washington. I kind of like the 4 main guys from Charlotte: Rozier, Oubre, Washington, and McDaniels a little bit more than the ownership is showing. McDaniels, I think, properly owned. Plumlee's whatever. What do you want to do here with Charlotte? They are getting pretty thin.
Yeah, they are. And you're getting a lot of minutes from the main pieces. Terry Rozier pulling 13% ownership at 7,700 looks pretty reasonable. Teo Maledon at 3,600, assuming that he's going to get a lot of minutes here, which had briefly been the case when DSJ and LaMelo were out before. But then LaMelo came back kind of sooner than expected, and those minutes went away. But now with them out again, you should get a lot of playing time from Teo Maledon at 3,600. He looks like a pretty solid value right now. Obviously, he's capable of disappearing from time to time, but overall this year, 0.86 DraftKings points per minute, certainly respectable at that price. We've seen Mason Plumlee's playing time trending up a bit over the last couple of weeks. He's only 5,400. Jalen McDaniels typically picks up more playing time when players are out because he can play multiple positions. He's only 4K. So I really think all 4 of those guys should be getting ownership. PJ Washington may be getting slept on a little bit here. Only 7% ownership. He is another guy that is just playing more minutes now than he was at the beginning of the season. So I think he's, kind of interesting to look at here, especially because he's getting less ownership than the other 4. And don't read anything into his last game where he played 20 minutes. He was just in massive, massive foul trouble.
Yeah. How are you handling the Teo Maledons of the world, the Kai Joneses of the world? Kai Jones played 28 minutes, I assume, just because of PJ Washington. But is there anything here for the bench guys for Charlotte?
I don't really think so. Like you said, Kai Jones, he played 28 minutes, but that was just straight minutes that PJ Washington wasn't on the floor. So I would expect that if PJ Washington plays his normal 34, you're getting 14 for Kai Jones. Book Knight still only played 15 minutes. I don't think there's really much.
Okay. I think we're on the same page there. The Boston side of this one is way more difficult to talk about. So Jason Tatum didn't play yesterday. In my mind, it is very obvious that you just don't play Jason Tatum today and give him an extra 2 more days to rest his ankle and just be healthy. If you're going to be playing the Charlotte Hornets missing, I don't know, 140 of the minutes they would like to play. So I put him in because I have no reason to suspect otherwise. And if Tatum can play, I feel like he's just going to play. But we don't know that status yet. I assume Al Horford is out. He has sat out all three of the back-to-backs that the Celtics have played so far this season. I have no concept of why they would run Al Horford out on a back-to-back against the Hornets in this case. So I did take Al Horford out. If Tatum is out, play all of the Jaylen Brown you can get at 8,500 on both sites. That one to me is an absolute no-brainer. But what do you just want to do with Boston? We probably got to talk about it more generally than anything else.
Yeah, if Tatum's out, again, just go right back to Jaylen Brown. Maybe he will eventually have a good game. Seems to just always find ways to hit 45 fantasy points and just stop. But 186 minutes for Brown this year without Tatum on the floor. 1.35 DraftKings points per minute. Usage rate up to 36%. So obviously that looks really good. Derek White's at 0.89 DraftKings points per minute. Brogdon's at 1.05. Smart's at 0.9. Any of those guys look fine as well. If Horford's out, I don't know who starts at center. We've seen Blake Griffin recently. They could go that route. Cornette's typically been the backup when they use a center as a backup, but they've typically, I think, gone Griffin most recently. Before that, they were going Vonleh. So
it was Vonleh for the first game, Blake for the next two.
Yeah. So one way or the other, if Horford's out, you're probably getting a very cheap power forward and or center, depending on who it is, that you can look to as a risky value option. I think the big thing, though, is, Jaylen Brown's just going to look fantastic as long as Tatum is out. If it's just Horford out, then, it doesn't really change much unless you want to just gamble on whichever guy is starting in his place.
I think it's pretty safe.
Also,
go ahead.
They could, they haven't been. They could just start Grant Williams if Horford's out. I don't think they would, though.
I don't think they would either. I think they're just going to have some combination of Blake and Luke Cornett and even Vonleh to a degree, just eating up those garbage center minutes because I think they'll just recognize what they have in front of them.
Yeah. That's kind of been their preference so far.
Yeah. All right. So we can keep it moving through Boston. We'll go to the next game then, unless you have any other thoughts on the Celtics.
Yeah, I agree with Stephen Leibowitz. Brown most likely did lose minutes yesterday. The Celtics did not plan on bringing those guys back.
All right. The Orlando Magic are 10.5-point dogs in Brooklyn, 219 total. Orlando played yesterday without Wendell Carter, who's been out for 4 games, without Jalen Suggs. That was the first one that he had missed, without Chuma Okeke, who had missed the last 2 games. We do have Paolo Banchero back, but we don't know the status of any of these dudes. Gary Harris now on a back-to-back, Terrence Ross on a back-to-back. I don't really find Orlando to be something that we could talk about until later.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces here.
So I'm going to say this. If you would like to play Paolo Banchero, I think that's reasonable regardless, especially on FanDuel at 7,800. 8,300 is probably a little pricey on DraftKings, but no matter who's in or out, I think Paolo's just going to run this team with like 20 plus. If a lot of these guys are out, then it might be like 40% usage and he becomes a little different. But to me, he's the only guy that we could actually talk about right now.
Yeah, and if everybody is in, I think this team just kind of looks bad across the board. But there's also just the potential for a million different value spots to open up. We saw Mo Wagner start the second half in place of Bamba yesterday. There's a lot of things that could potentially open up for Orlando. And something most likely will. Yeah.
But it's not going to get us anywhere to talk about this right now. So we'll go to the Brooklyn side. Also on a back-to-back, but just simply easier to talk about. Seth Curry has not played their previous back-to-backs. I did take him out for this one. I don't know how meaningful it's going to be, but it does sort of open up a little bit of value to the Cam Thomas and Edmund Sumners of the world. We'll still need to get that news. How do you want to handle Durant, O'Neal, Irving, Simmons? Not a ton of ownership going in here, but Kyrie, 8,400 on DraftKings, 8,100 on FanDuel, played 38 minutes yesterday, coming off of 38 minutes on Friday. He's an incredible play at 8,400 or 8,100, right?
Yeah, I think so. Even accounting for the fact that he's not been great with Kevin Durant in, you're still talking around 1.15 DraftKings points per minute for 37 or 38 minutes. He's basically the same as DeJounte Murray, except even less expensive. So I think he looks really good at 8,400. Ben Simmons at 7,100 still looks good to me. That price tag has dropped a little bit. Played 33 and a half minutes again yesterday. I don't really know. I guess because it's a bigger slate and you're just going to have value, but Ben Simmons getting 5% ownership at 7,100 when he very recently was, 20 to 40% owned at like 6,500 seems a little bit light to me. Claxton at 5,500 once again played good minutes yesterday, played 32 in a game where Simmons played 33 and a half. So, again, we're really seeing them just play them alongside each other a lot for right now. And there's no real reason to think that that's changing today.
No, we're on the same page here. I think most of that ownership for Claxton looks fine. You can project him. You can feel good about giving him 26 minutes and hoping he gets to 30 type stuff. And to me, he still looks good even at a relatively low mark. And obviously, Brooklyn should just look exceptional no matter what ends up being in for Orlando. Orlando's terrible.
Yeah, doesn't make a big difference there.
We go to Cleveland, who also played yesterday. They played without Jared Allen for the first game. They played without Karis LeVert for the last 4. No Lamar Stevens for the past 2. No Kevin Love for the past 3. Cleveland is like the North version of the Orlando Magic. There's really nothing we can say here. If you want to play Garland or Mitchell, go ahead. I don't think that they look particularly great today. I guess if you like Evan Mobley, by all means at 6,800, but there could be a lot of value in a Dean Wade or a Chetty Osman or potentially an Isaac Okoro. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly. The minutes were there yesterday. I mean, we got the game yesterday with no LeVert and no Jared Allen. Robin Lopez got the start, played a massive 3.8 minutes in the entire game. But you got the minutes. Chetty played 27 minutes. Dean Wade started. He played 34 and a half. Obviously, you got a ton of run from Evan Mobley, Garland, and Mitchell, as you would expect. Isaac Okoro started the second half in place of Lopez. He got up to 30 minutes. So if you get no LeVert and no Allen, it's going to open up a lot of, at the very least, just value pieces you can take shots at in Chetty, Wade, Okoro. If those guys are in, you still clearly can play Garland and Mitchell. You can play Mobley, but he does look better when Robin Lopez or when Jared Allen is out, especially if they are not going to play Lopez a lot of minutes. Those center minutes for Evan Mobley are really nice when he gets them. So that's something to pay attention to. Like if Allen is out, I think you can expect Mobley to play a couple more minutes anyway. But if they're starting Okoro in place of Allen instead of Lopez in place of Allen, I think that's even better for Evan Mobley.
Feels like a decent spot to actually start Robin Lopez and play him minutes against the dual big lineup of Brooklyn, but who the hell knows?
The dual big, but also not big lineup.
True. I mean, it's honestly 3 bigs. We're talking about Kevin Durant might be the biggest guy on that team.
Right.
From a height perspective.
Yeah. I mean, he might be from a weight perspective too.
Well, he's definitely not heavier than Ben Simmons.
Oh yeah, I guess Simmons. I'm pretty sure
they're like comparable size. Ben Simmons is definitely thicker than Kevin Durant.
Yeah. I was thinking Claxton.
Yeah. So yeah, pay attention to Cleveland news. It's really hard to dig into them because of the current status. They could go from having a bunch of value plays to having like nothing that looks good.
Royce O'Neal might be the heaviest guy in the starting lineup.
It's possible. I mean,
I think Simmons is probably the favorite, but
yeah, it's probably Simmons.
Royce O'Neal's 227 pounds according to Google. Ben Simmons is 240.
All I hear is my rat dog barking.
240 for Simmons, 227 for O'Neal, 215 for Claxton.
265 to Day'Ron Sharpe is the high mark per Basketball Reference. Durant and Simmons both 240.
Yeah, 240 for Durant.
Okay. But they also have Durant listed at 6'10", which is not true.
If you ask Kevin Durant, it is.
It's like his Tinder profile. Just like yours says, what, 5'1" instead of 4'11"?
Yeah, exactly.
Toronto on the opposite side, basically the same situation. Although we get a real injury report for Toronto. So Scotty Barnes is questionable. Pascal Siakam is questionable. Delano Banton questionable. Justin Champagnie questionable. No Otto Porter. No Precious Achua. Got to project the Q tags in, I guess, and we're getting the band back together for Toronto. Is there anything here for you if everybody's in?
If everybody's in, it gets pretty tough. Would be interested. I mean, I don't know if Siakam would be on a minutes limit. I don't think Nick Nurse knows what those words mean based on the way that he treats Fred VanVleet. Every time he gets hurt, comes back, plays 40 minutes, gets hurt again, comes back, plays 40 minutes. So I assume everybody would just be good to go. But Siakam's still priced up to 9,700 with center-only eligibility on DraftKings. We know that he kills Fred VanVleet's production. He makes VanVleet basically like a 1 fantasy point per minute guy, so it's not going to be easy to get there. If everybody's in, I have basically no interest in this team.
Yeah, the only guy that I kind of like is Barnes at no ownership, but it's all super marginal. again, we just kind of need this info because if there's no Barnes and no Pascal Siakam, something's going to be okay around here for the Raptors. I just don't know what it's going to be.
Agreed.
All right, so that's game 5, which means we need to talk a little bit about PrizePicks, presenting sponsor of this show. If you guys want to sign up at PrizePicks, you should, because there's a pretty good deal. If you click the link in the description of this video, you will get up to $100 of an instant match deposit bonus, which means you deposit something, they will give you that exact same amount up to $100. Put in 50, they'll give you 50. 75, they give you 75. You go to 100, you get 100. You're picking player props here. Put together 5 on one card. You can net up to 10x your entry fee. I think you and I should just look at a couple of these NBA props, unless you're feeling froggy about tennis or soccer or college basketball or NHL, because you can pick all sorts of different sports. You want to go soccer since that's like your new wheelhouse?
No, I am looking forward to the game tomorrow, though. Sort of.
I appreciate you for that. I like it. Let's start. Angelo Beninati. I think I'm saying that correct. We'll go with Angelo. I know I'm getting that piece right.
Wait, what are we doing?
I'm going to Angelo's big time super chat that's in chat right now. Best in the business, LFG. Thank you, Angelo, for that. I didn't want to let that sit there and then me forget about it.
Yeah. No, so I didn't see it, and I thought you were actually naming soccer players. And I was like,
Yeah, Angelo's got how many different passes for Angelo in, I'd say Italy's matchup, but Italy is not in the World Cup. All right, let's go raw points. So like just straight up scoring to your boy, Bradley Beal, over under 24.5.
Give me a second. I clicked the wrong thing.
Of course you did.
Yeah. You said how many? 24.5?
Yes.
We have 22.5 in 36.3 minutes, so I feel pretty good about the under.
I got 24-1, so it's mostly a push for me. Who else would look interesting that we've talked about? Not a lot from the early games. I bet that has something to do with the 900 million Q tags. We'll stay on the same team. Your boy Kristaps Porzingis. Over under. Definitely some amount of points. 21.5.
Slight under. We have him at 31.5 minutes, 20.7 points. So I think the minutes projection is pretty reasonable.
Okay. I got him at 20.9. So again, I don't know if that's one that I would go to. We'll go over to the Minnesota side. Rudy Gobert, 12.5.
Rudy Gobert, 12.5. Over. We have 14.3 in 31 minutes.
Yeah, I got 13.8, so I would be happy to go that direction. Final one, we'll go Karl Anthony Towns. 22.5, since he is projected for some ownership.
Karl Anthony Towns, how many? 22.5?
Yeah, I have the under here.
We have 22.6.
Oh, okay. This was the first one that I actually like. I really like the under for Towns and the over for Gobert. So that's where we stand, guys. Go sign up at PrizePicks. Again, link in the description, up to $100 on that first deposit. We go to, oh God, here we go again. Oklahoma City, 4-point dogs in New Orleans, 232 total. This is a ridiculous game to talk about. So OKC not on the back-to-back, thank God. Only guy that is officially out is Mike Muscala. Evidently, Lindy Waters, Jalen Williams, Omer Yuri are all with the G League team. We got word from Mark Dagnall on Saturday that we were going to get Ousmane Dieng back into the rotation, or at least he was going to play. He played 21 minutes. Poku got 8.5.
Yeah,
Aaron
do not
Wiggins,
call that thing a rotation.
Yeah, Aaron Wiggins also got to play 22 minutes. The only guys that I want to play are Shea and Giddey.
The only guy you can completely trust on this team is Shea. Then it's Giddey, and then it's Dort, and then it's just like nobody. Poku. I
actually think it's Jalen Williams ahead of Dort at this point.
It really could be, but like that just it's like interchangeable. We were getting there with Pokusevski, where I was starting to like it would be all right. He's averaging 24 minutes as a starter, but I'll give him 26. I'll give him 28 when he avoids foul trouble. He really is consistently playing. And then he plays 9 minutes. Lou Dort, 14 minutes in that same game. Like right now, you're seeing stable minutes for Jalen Williams, the guard. Who knows how long that lasts? I have no confidence in anything on this team outside of Shea. Giddey at 7K still looks fine. If you want to just hope that you get a Poku game at 4,800 and no ownership, like obviously the ceiling is there. So like that's fine. Same with Dort and Jalen Williams. But to me, the only guy that I can play, or only two guys I can play with any level of confidence, are Gilgeous-Alexander and to a lesser extent Giddey.
Agreed. And then we go to the Pelicans side. Luckily, we have an injury report here. No CJ McCollum. Brandon Ingram, doubtful. Q-tag Nance, Q-tag Najee Marshall. Assuming the two Q-tags are in, we could talk about this team pretty easily. It just gets infinitely better if we end up getting those guys out. Zion Williamson is 7,900 on DraftKings, 7,800 on FanDuel, 30-something% owned, and I don't even think that's enough. Let's just start with Zion first, who is going to have carte blanche to do whatever he wants against Oklahoma City today. He might break Poku in half.
No McCollum, Ingram doubtful. Zion Williamson should just be doing everything. I doubt that we have much of a sample without those two on the floor, but
it's bigger than you'd think.
66 minutes for Zion this year, 34.4% usage rate, 27% assist percentage, 1.33 DraftKings points per minute. He is going to look really, really good here.
Yeah, we're going to see point Zion. I mean, he's going to run the entire offense when he's on the floor. Could play upwards of 35 minutes, 36 minutes if things break correctly. I got him in for 32. I don't want to go too crazy, but I think he is incredible. He was my number one contender today on both sites. And it, in theory, could look even better if we start lopping off a couple more guys just because there's more potential minutes to go around. But this whole Pelicans team looks great. Herb Jones is getting owned on both sites. Not that I'm excited about it. Jose Alvarado, 4,300 on DraftKings, 4,700 on FanDuel. 60% owned on DK right now. Probably a little healthy, but also a fantastic point per dollar play. Trey Murphy, Joe Val, Nance if he plays. Hell, Najee Marshall if he plays. All of the Pelicans look good today.
Yeah, and there's a lot of minutes to go around. Without Ingram and McCollum on the floor, Alvarado only at 0.65 DraftKings points per minute this year, but that has to go up. Only 47% true shooting. Devontae Graham's at 1.15 DraftKings points per minute. There's just going to be a lot of value here. We have Herb Jones pulling 21% ownership. Joe Val at 5,900 should get a lot of opportunities offensively as well. If Nance, who is questionable, were to miss, then obviously Joe Val's minutes look better. Najee Marshall's status matters. If he's out, it just opens up even more minutes for whatever backups are in.
Yeah. I mean, this is an incredible spot that could look even better as we go forward. How do you feel about that Alvarado ownership?
It makes sense, but it also seems a little bit aggressive.
Yeah.
It makes sense in that he's going to project as one of the best values, and you're just going to be able to build good lineups around him, and you can still very easily make contrarian lineups that have him. I think it's a little bit high in the sense that a lot of times he's just going to score 28, 29, 30 DraftKings points, where that's very good for his salary, but it probably isn't necessary to win on a slate of this size.
Yeah, we're on the same sort of wavelength here. So that's New Orleans. Anything else you want to add here?
I actually did want to check. Yeah, Herb Jones has only played 17 minutes without them on the floor this year. I was curious if maybe they would actually make his usage rate go up a little bit, going back to last year to see if that mattered, but
I can't imagine it matters.
677 minutes without Ingram or McCollum last year, or since the start of last year. Still only a 16.5% usage rate, 13.5% assist percentage for Jones.
Okay. All righty then. We're going to go to game number 6.
Oh, sorry.
Game number 7.
Alvarado, going back to the start of last year, Alvarado is at a just shy of a fantasy point per minute without those guys on the floor.
Okay, good to know. The Houston Rockets are 11.5-point dogs in Denver, 228 total. This is where it starts to get a little bit easier. Houston's not on a back-to-back. Jayshawn Tate still out. Bruno Fernando off the injury report. I don't really know what they're going to be doing with the Bruno Fernando, Alperen Şengün duo. I also don't think it matters. The highest owned guy on Houston is 2.5% owned KPJ. They're 4% on FanDuel. I think Houston just looks awful.
Yeah, really, really unappealing spot, I think, especially, with guys coming back, everybody being priced up. If Şengün starts, I think he's still playable. Like I would still project him for 27, 28 minutes if he starts. Even if he comes off the bench, I probably project like 26. But that price tag's just gotten up there. You obviously have a lot of really good center options on a slate like this. If everybody's in, I don't see much that stands out at all from Houston.
Yeah, I don't really know how to talk about them here. They grade out really, really poorly. If you want to roll the dice on Bruno Fernando at 4K, like to me, that's the only thing that I would look at and think, okay, that's the spot where I could win a GPP. Like if they just go straight back to a Bruno Fernando over Şengün type thing, but I don't really want to prioritize anything from Houston.
Agreed.
Denver's slightly different. We do have their injury report. Michael Porter Jr. is doubtful with a left heel contusion. We have a Q tag on Bones Highland, who feels like he's been sick for weeks. And Jeff Green is still out. Assuming, like, I have Bones still out since he's been out. And I don't have MPJ in. I like the starters here, all 5 of them, and they're not really getting all that much ownership outside of Bruce Brown at 15%. Jamal Murray got to 11, but I'd be happy to get to some Jokic or KCP or Aaron Gordon. I just think Denver is in a pretty good spot here against Houston. It's a bad Houston team.
Yeah, certainly an appealing matchup. Obviously there is some blowout risk, but appealing matchup for them. Michael Porter Jr. being doubtful, Bones Highland being questionable. If those guys were to miss, Porter doesn't affect a ton outside of giving Bruce Brown more minutes and a 5,800 point guard small forward on DraftKings. That's going to be pretty valuable. If Highland is out, it does just sort of open up usage for anybody that would normally play any minutes alongside of him. Jamal Murray at 7K looks solid. I think he looks a little bit better if Highland is out. KCP looks a little bit better if Highland is out at 4,500. Gordon, Jokic, Brown, like those guys are all, I'm happy to get to these guys. I don't necessarily think there's one that stands out, but it's just a team that looks really good.
Yeah, we are on the same page there. Let me see what I actually do have. Yeah, I got to more Bruce Brown and Jamal Murray than anything else on the FanDuel side. Jokic 11 too, but any Jokic I can get against this Houston front court will work for me. All right, we got to talk one last time. We do need to talk about BetMGM. It's World Cup time. We've converted Adam into the biggest United States soccer fan that you guys have ever seen. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he can now bet on sports. So now he can get some money down. If you guys want to get some money down, if you're in a legal betting state and you haven't signed up at BetMGM yet, click the link in the description, head on over to BetMGM, make a qualified deposit, put $10 down on any part of the World Cup. My recommendation, put that $10 down on the United States tomorrow against Iran. And if they win, great. If they lose, obviously you want to win your bet, but it doesn't matter for the deal you're about to get. You just need a goal scored somewhere, anywhere. It doesn't even have to be for your bet. You'll get $200 in free bets from BetMGM. Soccer season, everybody. Take advantage of it while you can right now. Build up that sports betting bankroll. 3 games to go, Adam. Chicago, 2.5-point dogs in Utah. 234 total on that one. For the Bulls, we do have a little bit of news that's kind of interesting. Alex Caruso's questionable, but there was a quote yesterday from Billy Donovan, right? Yeah, it's Billy Donovan. From Billy Donovan saying that Caruso is probably going to be out today. We do get Goran Dragic back. He finally came back after missing Wednesday's game. He was back for Friday's game. I think that might unlock a little bit of Dragic as a value option, but we're seeing slowly but surely increased minutes out of DeRozan, Levine, Vooch. Do these guys look good to you against Utah in a matchup against a not all that great defense?
Yeah, I think they look pretty appealing because the salaries have fallen a bit too. Levine's still sitting at 7,200. Probably my favorite option here. Should give you 34, 35 minutes. He's a little bit over a fantasy point per minute guy. You're getting a nice ceiling from Vucevic in a very favorable spot. He's only 7,400. DeRozan at 8,200 looks pretty good. Right now, we have a ton of ownership coming into Andre Drummond. This happened the other day as well in the morning. It changed by lock. It'll change this time. There's no reason Drummond should be 18% owned. If you want to gamble on Drummond at 3,700, then fine. He didn't play in the second half last game. They went to Derek Jones as the backup center. That was against the very small Oklahoma City team. I think it's likely that Drummond just plays the backup center minutes today. So like he's the play that he normally is, where if Vooch gets in foul trouble, Drummond's going to look good. But barring Vooch foul trouble, like he's not going to look that good, and there's no way he actually gets 18% ownership.
He's going to smash today. Today's the Vooch day where he gets into trouble and Drummond goes out there and just beast mode.
I mean, that's fine. Like I'm all for mixing. Like if you're playing 150 lineups, I'm all for mixing in some Drummond because it's just one of the easiest paths as far as low owned guys go to tournament winning play, like out of nowhere. If he were 18% owned, I would have zero. He's not going to be 18% owned.
No, at 18% owned, I want no part of Andre Drummond.
Right. Yeah, the whole point of Andre Drummond is that he's not going to be a good play very often, but when he is, you just are at the top of leaderboards. If 1/5 of the field has him, then you're just saying he's not going to be a good play very often, and when he is, I still might cash.
Yeah, I still got to beat 8,000 other people. Then we go to the Utah side. You don't have anything else for Chicago, correct?
Correct.
No Mike Conley still. No Rudy Gay. Q-tag, though, on Lauri Markkanen, knee contusion. We'll see how that shakes out. Not a guy that misses a lot of time, or at least not yet for Utah. No one in double digits on the DraftKings side. You get Kelly Olynyk at 5,700, gets to 9.8%. It's a little bit different on FanDuel. Try these prices on for size. Jordan Clarkson is 6,200 on FanDuel. He is 7,500 on DraftKings. Kelly Olynyk is 5,300 on FanDuel. That's only $400 cheaper than he is on DK. Also gets the power forward eligibility. Colin Sexton, 5,100 compared to 5,500. This is a much better team on FanDuel than it is on DK. But I still think Markkanen, Clarkson, Olynyk, Sexton, getting the fifth guy right, like there's something there for Utah today.
Yeah, and we've seen increased playing time too with Conley being out, which has been nice because earlier in the year, that was sort of the issue with the starters was that compared to other starters, they just weren't playing that many minutes. So even though they were productive, it was kind of difficult to trust them. But they've been playing more. You got another 34 minutes from Clarkson last game. He's given you some games where he's played 37, 38, 39 minutes without Conley. Sexton, once again, played 30 minutes as the starter. Olynyk played 33, so his playing time's been up as well as long as he isn't fouling. Malik Beasley, 35 minutes. He closed. He hadn't closed the previous game, but typically he's been in their closing lineup. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, 2 games in a row now, has been in the rotation, playing 30 minutes and then 16. I think he is typically going to average out around 18 minutes or so. He's really cheap if you really want to gamble. But as far as the starters go, I agree. Like on FanDuel, they are really underpriced. On DraftKings, they are good, like secondary contrarian plays.
I'm a little mad I didn't win the Nickeil Alexander-Walker lottery on Saturday.
Yeah.
16 minutes for Walker. Definitely didn't end up being Simone Fontecchio, though, who is still not getting any sort of playing time in DNP CDs. But I like the Utah side of this one, just sort of in general across the board for the FanDuel side. And like Malik Beasley, 5,500 on FanDuel. I don't love that price, but unowned. Every once in a while, this dude just like yesterday plays, or like Saturday plays 35 minutes. Everyone, when he's doing that, I assume the threes are going.
I don't understand why all these people are making fun of Drop Roses. AK-47 and Olynyk are both tall and white. I don't know how you don't see the comparison.
It's that one. Like, how much of it do you think is a bit? Be careful with your words.
I hope a lot.
How much do you think is a bit?
10%.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, that like they're almost like inverse comps.
Right. I also barely remember Karolinko like I was a teenager.
I mean, like you'd be more likely to get Ben Simmons correct there with like a shot. I mean, like incredible defender, weak side help, shot blocker, classic getting off the floor like Kelly Olynyk. I mean, he was like uber athletic. He came around like 10, 15 years too early as a stretch five. Like,
right. So I remember liking him for that reason. Because like I always like stretch 4/5s before they were a thing because I thought it made sense. But like I don't remember specifics about his game.
It's not Kelly Olynyk, that much I can tell you. All right, we're going to Phoenix. Phoenix Suns are 1-point dogs in Sacramento, 226 total. For the Phoenix Suns, we've got Devin Booker, who's like I was trying to think of some random guy that he definitely didn't play like a Jim Paxson. Anyway, for Phoenix, yeah. I was also trying to think of like a short. He's like Mark Price. There we go. Like a white shooter. Chris Paul is out. Cam Johnson is out. Jay Crowder still gone.
Devin Booker's not white, right?
I know that's the point of my comp. I
Oh,
wanted
okay.
none of it. I
Okay.
wanted none of it to be
Got it.
right.
Okay. I'll say I don't know when the last time you watched the Suns was, but
No. I wanted none of it to be right. Let's just talk about Phoenix here, who are without the same guys that have been out for a minute or two. No ownership really coming in on the DraftKings side, but FanDuel has campaign at 6,100 instead of 6,900. We have Devin Booker at 92 instead of 96. No real ownership going to Bridges, although given what you had I think it was over the weekend, and what I had, I think we'll probably be getting to Mikal Bridges. What do you want to do here with Phoenix against Sacramento?
yeah, I mean, Bridges still just playing huge minutes. I thought that maybe they would come down a little bit with Shamit back. I had projected him for 38 the other day, and then I'd said to you that I thought maybe I'd gone a little bit too high based on how much I got. But he played 41 minutes again, so those minutes seem pretty safe. Shamit played 15. They still ran a deeper rotation than I expected. Ish Wainwright was firmly in the rotation, played 17 and a half minutes. That was surprising to me. We got Landale back in there, sort of. So back to that 3 center rotation, which doesn't really matter. Like DeAndre Ayton's still clearly the guy, and in competitive games, he's going to play a lot. It does make me even more hesitant than I already would have been to just, take those random shots at Bismack Biyombo. But Ayton at 7,700, I think still looks decent. Booker at 9,600, Payne at 6,900. Payne's probably my favorite, averaging around 32 minutes without Paul. He's around a fantasy point per minute guy. The price tag's falling a little bit. This is another team where I don't think any one guy stands out, but clearly you're getting really nice ceilings from Booker, Payne, Ayton, Bridges.
Yeah. Anything else for Phoenix? Because I think they're pretty easy to just talk about.
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Standard issue rotation for Sacramento, who could not be less interesting today. When you know that everybody is in and no one wants anything that's on the team, it's going to be pretty tough. Keegan Murray projected for 8% ownership, and that's too high as far as I'm concerned by quite a bit, honestly. There's no ownership coming to Sacramento. If you like Sabonis or Herter or Fox, whatever, but I don't like any bit of this Kings team.
Yeah, I mean, I would. So Sabonis is tough just because he's center only at 9,200. He's about a 1.35 fantasy point per minute guy. And if he's not in foul trouble, he's probably playing around 35 minutes. But you can just get similar production for a lot less at center. To me, the most interesting guy is probably De'Aaron Fox at 9,300, just because you are talking about the same per minute production as Trae Young, maybe a minute or so less, but very, very comparable, excluding matchup. But just in terms of fantasy production, very, very comparable to Trae Young, getting no ownership here. De'Aaron Fox, it's not difficult to see how he just kind of breaks a slate at 9,300. So I don't think I get to him with a lot of frequency, but I do think 9,300 for Fox at no ownership is really interesting.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. Sabonis for 8,800 on FanDuel also has the power forward eligibility. He's 5% owned. Like I'd be happy to get to parts there, but none of these guys are efficiently priced. None of these guys look like exceptional values. On a day with 10 games and like 9 million Q tags, they're going to look worse by the end of the day than they do look better. That's for sure. You ready to close it out?
Yep.
The Indiana Pacers are 4.5-point underdogs in Los Angeles against the Los Angeles Lakers. 234 total for Indiana. They played yesterday. We still have the Q tag on Nembhard potentially. I guess Chris Duarte could, in theory, be back. I don't think that he is, but who knows? There is no ownership coming into Indiana here. Do you see anything from Indiana that you would like to prioritize?
Just take what I just said about De'Aaron Fox, apply it to Tyrese Halliburton at 6% ownership, and that looks fine. There's just a lot of guys that look very, very similar, but he looks pretty good. Jalen Smith, 4,700. If you want to gamble in tournaments, he's cheap. Turner is fine. There's nothing that stands out, though, I don't think.
No.
It is a good spot.
Yeah, it is. I think a couple of these guys look good, but they're just never going to look as good as so much other stuff that's comparable. Right. Do I want to get to Jalen Smith? Sure. But I'm not confident in that. So it's really hard for him to pull a ton of minutes. $7,900 Turner on FanDuel is pretty appropriately priced. You get the power forward eligibility, but I don't see it as a spot where I would get a ton of ownership, but I don't mind getting to any of those starters.
Yeah, I mean, Turner is obviously in a good spot. It's just like you have a lot of guys that look similar. The Jalen Smith piece is really interesting. I mean, you have no idea going into a game if he's going to play 18 minutes or 30 minutes, but he's a fantasy point per minute guy. He's $4,700. He's 3% owned. If you're going to play guys like Jalen Smith, I would much rather do it in spots like this than the spots where he's like 35% owned. And, you're still running the risk of him playing 18 minutes. He played 29 minutes yesterday and didn't get garbage time. That's obviously the very top end of his playing time. He was playing really, really well, but he is a really interesting tournament play to me.
On the Lakers side, we are still without Patrick Beverley serving the final game of his suspension. LeBron James probable, Anthony Davis questionable. I've got them both in. Did you see the foul from Zach Collins on Russ?
I saw Russ's forehead, and I sort of saw the foul, but I didn't watch it closely enough, I guess, because I didn't really think it was a big deal.
I barely thought it was a foul.
Right.
Let alone a flagrant 2. I don't know why he got the gate. It makes no sense. Because you had him?
Yeah.
I had some, but not nearly enough. It was preposterous. I don't think that I would have agreed with a flagrant 1 call. It just happened to not work out.
I only saw it once, but I was expecting to be like, oh, wow, that was really bad. And instead it was just like, I guess I missed it.
Yeah. And Russ was hot.
Yeah. But that's like a normal reaction when your forehead gets split open by somebody.
Yeah. I don't think he's crazy, but his reaction, I think, caused Zach Collins to get tossed.
Yeah.
It's insane. What do you want to do with the Lakers other than probably not play much of them on DraftKings? Other than on FanDuel, you can get to LeBron at 10-2 small forward, power forward, but no ownership coming to the Lakers. This is a really weird late night hammer, because there's no ownership going to anybody. And this is the kind of game that is going to have a lot of fantasy points.
Right. It's a really appealing game. And if Schroeder's going to be 2% owned, I like that. He's 4,500. He's probably playing around 30 minutes or so. Obviously, your production from him is going to be hit or miss, especially assuming that Davis and LeBron are in. The offense is running through those 2 guys. Schroeder's not the most efficient shooter, but he's still going to get scoring opportunities. He's still really cheap. So I think at no ownership in a good matchup, that's appealing. Certainly don't mind getting to Davis or James if I can. It's just that they're pretty expensive, and if they're both in, neither one's going to stand out. If one of them is out, then by all means play a lot of the other one.
Yeah. I just don't have much here. $4,500 Schroeder is sort of interesting to me if he's playing 30 minutes, but 0.7 fantasy points per minute so far hasn't been great. I don't know. I understand the LeBron ownership on FanDuel just because of the way FanDuel works, but what a weird late night hammer. Because something's popping here at 234.
Right. Somebody in this game is going to have a massive game, but none of them from a median standpoint look that great.
There might not be enough ownership for it to matter if they do.
Yeah.
Unless it's AD or LeBron or Halliburton or something like that.
Well, yeah, it depends what we're saying by massive. If Miles Turner goes for 46 at 2%, it might not matter. If Miles Turner goes for 60, it matters.
Yeah, that's fair. 10 games up, 10 games down. Anything else you want to touch on here?
No.
Injury report video coming out.
Injury report, tournament plays. They'll be out in an hour or 2.
There you go, guys. Deeper dive later today, 4:45 with Adam. Make sure you're paying attention to that one because it's going to look way different than this show.
Hopefully, because if not, it means we are still waiting on a lot of news.
Yeah, if it doesn't look a lot different, then holy hell, Live Before Lock is going to be just absolute tire fire for those guys. Good luck tonight, everybody. Thank you to PrizePicks for being the sponsor. Make sure you're signing up to our Cyber Monday deal. Today is your last day. If you want to do that, hit that like button on your way out the door. Thank you guys for being here. We'll talk to you later. Peace.